Yo, what's going on, Vast Church? Let's give a shout for everybody that's joining us online in Gloversville and in Amsterdam. We are so glad that you're here with us today. And if you're ever in town, we would love to have you here. It's my heart that this will be a place where you can come, feel accepted, and feel loved. And I promise you, if you come on in, we're going to make you feel right at home. So this week, I'm so excited to get started with our series on Daniel. And over the next 5 weeks, we have the potential to impact your life in a significant way. And we'll be covering, for the next 5 weeks, we'll be talking about what it looks like to stand for what you believe in a culture that's not standing at all. So we're going to be looking at the life of Daniel. If you don't know what Daniel is, it's a book in the Bible, and he was a dude that lived a long time ago. And we're going to look at the story that he's talked about, and we're going to compare it to what we're walking through today and see how you can stand in a culture that doesn't believe in God and how we can make a difference in the area that we're in today. So we're going to be looking through the book of Daniel, and in week 1, we're going to be seeing how we can stand out. So that's this week. And if you don't know how to stand out, how many of y'all believe that if you stand for the right things at the right time in the right way, it can change the course of history and the directions of our life and those around us? But if we compromise in these areas, it leads to the wrong things at the wrong time for the wrong reason, and this can cost you more than you could ever imagine. So this week, we're going to learn how we can stand for the right things in the right way at the right time. So next week, we're going to be looking at stand up for what's right. So we're going to be watching how Daniel, we take 5 different stories from the Old Testament of the book of Daniel. We're going to see how he actually stands up to the king who had the power to take his life, and Daniel stands up to him. And it's really crazy because Daniel should have been dead, but he wasn't, because he stood up and he did what God called him to do. So it's a really fascinating story to see how we stand up for what is true. And then in week 3, we're going to see how we can stand up for what matters most. So we're going to be talking about standing up for what matters most. In the story of Daniel, the king told him that he couldn't pray anymore and for a certain amount of time. And so obviously Daniel, being a man of God, he's like, bro, I can't do that. I got to pray, and something I have to do. So we're going to see how he does that and how he stands for what he believes in the right way. So, and then week 4, we're going to see what we can stand against. So how do you stand in faith and in prayer when things are coming against you? Daniel has been praying, and Michael the archangel visits him and tells him that God has already heard his prayer and the cry of his heart. And I believe that this will minister to many people. So this is one message that you're not going to want to miss, and that's week 4. And it's going to impact you in a very, very deep way as you try to stand for your faith and believe God to work on your behalf. And then week 5, it's called Stand With. So in week 5, we're going to be talking about how to stand firm in the fire. And this is one of my favorite stories in the Bible. And it's about how Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, those are some crazy names, but how they stand firm in those who are opposing them. So it's a crazy story. You're not going to want to miss week 5, and it's all leading up to this one moment in Daniel. So we're going to get into the week 1, stand firm. So it's about how you can stand for the right thing at the right time in the right way, and I'm promising you this week it's going to change the course and the direction of your life. So we're going to look at Daniel 1, and if you got your Bible with you, you can open up to Daniel 1 with me, and we're going to look at the backstory. And there was a king in the town of Babylon, and he was an evil king. So every time I like to do this, we like to say, okay, here we go. King Nebuchadnezzar, I want you guys to go, boo. Here we go. Let's try it together. Ready? 1, 2, 3. King Nebuchadnezzar, boo. You guys killed it. So King Nebuchadnezzar was a terrible guy. He went in, he tried to burn the temple and destroy the cities and humiliate God's people by taking their faith symbols from the temple and burning them. So he went in and destroyed everything because he wanted to decimate what those people believed in. And so in 1605, he sent somebody over to find the best and the brightest young future leaders. He went in and he intentionally indoctrinated them into the Babylonian culture and to train them into becoming future government leaders and advisors. So we're going to look at Daniel 1, 3 through 5 and see how he got through this process. So let's read this together. So the king ordered Ashpenaz, that's a crazy name, Ashpenaz, chief of his court officials, to bring into the king's service some of the Israelites from the royal family and the noble. young men without any physical defect. He wanted the ones that were handsome, showing aptitude of every kind of learning, well-informed, quick to understand, and qualified to serve in the king's palace. So he was to teach them the language and the literature of the Babylonians. See right there, he's teaching them the language and the literature of the Babylonians. The king assigned them a daily amount of food and wine from the king's table. They were to be trained for 3 years, and after that, they were to enter the king's service. So King Nebuchadnezzar, boo, right? So his plan was to intentionally indoctrinate them to think like the Babylonians think, to behave like the Babylonians behave, and believe like the Babylonians believe. Sounds like somebody else I know, our enemy, the devil, right? So he wants us to think like him, right? Behave like him, and believe like him. I believe that there's a full-scale attack on our life, and the devil is trying to seduce us. He's trying to lie to us and deceive us. And there's many, many different ways that he's doing that. But specifically, one of the ways that he's doing it is through the media, advertisements, music, and subtle messages to buy things that he wants us to have, believe the way that he wants us to believe, and think the way that he wants to think, right? So, and that's why I would argue with all of my heart that it is completely impossible to be a sort of Christian, right? You can't be a sort of Christian and have any success in this world. It is completely impossible to have what some may call or be a cultural Christian and have any kind of spiritual success in this world. So you might say, what is a cultural Christian? Well, I mean, they're everywhere. They're the people that are like, do you believe in God? And they're like, yeah, I believe in God. Well, are you a Christian? Well, yeah, I mean, I am a Christian. I mean, I'm something else, and I go to church on Easter or Christmas, right? How many of you guys know people like that, right? Well, I mean, I'm a good person, and I try hard. I mean, I'm not religious, but yeah, I'm a Christian. Well, you're a cultural Christian. How many of y'all are cultural Christians? Raise your hand. Don't raise your hand. That's craziness. So I would argue all day long that it's completely impossible to be a sort of Christian and be a cultural Christian, have any kind of spiritual success and victory against the temptations of the one of the darkness of this world. You can't be a kind of sort of Christian. You have to be an all in or you're all nothing. You can't be lukewarm. You're either all in or you're all nothing, all right? You can't passively be a Christian in this world. Could you imagine how crazy it would be, right? If you were just trying to eat one meal a week and be a healthy person, that's ludicrous, right? And if you try to do one workout, right, you're not going to get jacked, right? You're not going to get jacked. I mean, unless you're doing steroids, but you're not going to get jacked, right? You can't just do one workout a year and get jacked. You can't just fill your gas tank once a year and expect, okay, well, here we go. I'm full of gas, right? No, you can't. So you can't just go to 1 hour of church a week and be, actually, wait, let me scratch that. You can't go to 50 minutes per week. This is for all the people that were late to church every single week and be full for the whole week. And this is why Paul said in Ephesians, put on your full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. Therefore, put on the full armor of God so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground, and after you have done everything, stand. If you take a stand for the right things at the right time in the right ways, it could change the course and the direction of our lives around us. And I would submit to you that if you're never standing out and you're always blending in, then you're not truly a committed follower to Jesus. And I'm not trying to be harsh today, but I'm trying to talk about what it is and what it really looks like to be a believer and to fully stand out in the culture that we are placed in. Okay? So we need to be set apart and we need to be holy. So I know a lot of you guys, we've heard the word holy. So what does holy actually mean? So holy means to be set apart, right? And God says, be holy as I am holy. And there are times when you have to stand out. And if you're truly following Jesus, you're going to stand out. And that's what we're going to see happen in Daniel's life. So let's go back to Daniel 1, 6 through 7. And let's go see what he's saying in this verse. So among those that were chosen, some from Judea, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, the chief official gave them new names. So to Daniel, he gave him the name Belteshazzar. Let's say that together. I can't even say it. Belteshazzar. And to Hananiah, Shadrach. And to Mishael, Meshach. And to Azariah, Abednego. Right? So their new names were Belteshazzar, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Okay? Why did they change their name? They took 4 boys that were about 12 to 15 years old or so. They uprooted the family and took them over 1,000 miles away from home and stripped them of their identity. And they tried to crush any sense of dignity within them as humans. Okay? So why did they change their names? So every single one of their names were related to their God, Yahweh. So Yahweh is the name of God of Abraham, the one that we worship, and his name is Yahweh, which actually means the breath. And if you do breathe in, you go, Yahweh, Yahweh. And this is actually a name that was almost so holy back in the Jewish religion that they didn't even want to use it. So when they worshiped their God Yahweh, and then King Nebuchadnezzar, right, boo, came in, and he tried to crush any sense of their old ways. So they gave them new names, which was the names that were dedicated to the Babylonian gods of which they served. Alongside of that, so what they also did was they changed their diet to eat food that was prepared for the king. So their diet consisted of food that was made to give to the king, which they worshipped, pagan gods, okay? So the problem with the meat and the wine dedicated to pagan gods, why is this a problem? Because they would have to choose to turn their back on the God that they serve, right? So let's go back into Daniel 1:8 and let's go see what he did. So Daniel was a bad dude. He had a choice to make, right? We all have choices to make throughout our life and everywhere that we're going, and we need to choose that we're going to serve God and that we're going to serve the one that created us. So let's go into this and see what he says in Daniel 1. But Daniel resolved, ready? Let's read this together. Resolved not to defile himself with the royal food and wine, and he asked the chief officials for permission to not defile himself in this way. Daniel 1, right? So he didn't fight when their names were taken. Why? Right? Why? Because on the outward label, right, people can call us anything that we want. We know who we are, right? So Daniel didn't defend his name. And he said, hey, you can call me whatever you want. You can tie me to whatever God you want me to. And I know who I am. An outward name does not define who I am in my heart. And you can call me whatever you want. But I know inwardly who I am, right? And us as God's children, we should know exactly who we are and who created us and what we were created to be.
So when did Daniel and his friends decide to take a stand? He took a stand when God's name would be defiled. And I'm not going to let, he said, I'm not going to let you insult the name of my God. I've resolved to not defile myself by eating this food. So he just said that he's not going to defile himself by eating food that's not dedicated to his God, but to the gods of the pagan culture. So how did he pull this off, right? So how did he do this? He was in the midst of all this pressure. He was faced with many, many trials, but he said, okay, we're not going to do this. How did he do it? He pre-decided, right? If we don't pre-decide, we will rationalize our disobedience and our wrong thinking. So what do we say to ourselves whenever we don't pre-decide? We say, well, God will understand. Everyone else is doing it. Lame. It's not hurting anybody. Come on, bro. I got to eat. Right? Whenever we're faced with problems, we rationalize this all the time. So if we don't make a predetermined resolution, we're not going to stand, right? But if you're going to stand for God, you have to make some decisions ahead of time. Like, I'm not going to have sex until I'm married, not going to get it on in the back seat of the car, right? I'm not going to go to the party, and I'm not going to get drunk, right? So I'm not going to be laughing at filthy jokes. I'm not going to be having private conversations, bashing my boss at work, and I'm not going to get caught up in materialism, right? We have to pre-decide that we're not going to do these things. I'm not going to overeat, right? I'm not going to go home and watch porn on the computer. We need to pre-decide before we get into the midst of temptation, because then we're going to be able to make a stand, right? So we need to decide what we're going to do and what we're not going to do before we get into areas of pressure. Okay? So my first job when I turned 15 years old, I started working at McDonald's. And how many of y'all know y'all love McDonald's? How many of y'all don't like McDonald's? All right, you don't have to go that far. Okay, everybody loves McDonald's. But so I was trying to really get my life right with God. And I heard that, if you're a good Christian, right, you're going to fast. Right? How many of y'all know what fasting is? Well, fasting is when you withhold eating food for a period of time and you don't want to eat because you want something more than God. So we give up something that we want for the things that we want more, and that's one of our values here. But we're giving up food that we want for the thing that we want more because we're seeking God for spirituality. So I heard, at 15 years old, well, you got to be a good Christian. If you're not a good Christian unless you fast. So I was trying to fast, and so one day I was like, well, I'm going to fast today, right? I didn't really pre-decide. I kind of just threw the whole thing together, and then I went to work. How many know it's not a good idea to fast if you're going to be going to work at McDonald's? You're surrounded by greasy food. There's ice cream and and there's chicken nuggets. And there's cookies. And oh my goodness, how many of y'all know you like those chicken tendies? Oh, I love me some chicken tendies, but it's really, really difficult to fast when you're there. So I was surrounded by food, and so I was like, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to tell myself, all right, I'm knuckling down. I'm strong. I got this. Okay. So I went into work, right? So an hour went by, and I'm like, man, I'm good. I got this. Lord, I'm strong. I'm a strong man. Yes, Lord, I got this. So then I go in, okay, it's hour 2, right? Well, I'm good. I'm doing good. I think I'm doing good, right? And then hour 3, 4, and 5, I start rationalizing. Well, God will understand. I already did 2 hours. I'm good. I already did 2 hours. God's going to understand, right? And by hour 6, I was like, eating all of the chicken nuggets and the cookies and everything else. My boss comes back, and I got like chipmunk cheeks. So, right? But what happened? Why did I fail, right? It's because I didn't pre-decide. I didn't make a decision that, okay, well, I'm going to make this happen. I didn't think about it beforehand, and I really went in kind of wavering. I was kind of double-minded in the way that I thought, but I didn't really go in thinking, okay, well, I'm going to do this in a time where I can be set up for success. I went into a time of pressure, and I was pressured into doing it, and I didn't make it. Fasting went way better when I decided that I was going to do it the day beforehand and not the day of. And when I pre-decided in my head what was going to happen, and I wasn't going to shake on it. So this didn't look like a one-time event in Daniel's life. What happened was a predefined decision that they lived out daily. So day after day, they stood at breakfast, at lunch, and at dinner because they refused to eat the foods that displeased God. So what we do in secret will always come to the light. So if we're spending time in the Word and we're soaking up the gospel and we're spending time with Jesus, right? It's going to be a lot easier when we go into times of temptation because we've already pre-decided. We've already pre-decided in the secret place, and what happens in the secret place comes out in the light. And the closer that we get to God, the more that we will stand out, and you will not be ashamed because of what he has done for you. So let's learn from the wisdom of Daniel today as he talks about the government leaders placed above him. So he goes up to them, and this is what he says to them. Please test your servant for 10 days. Give us nothing but vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then compare our appearance with that of young men who eat the royal food, and treat your servants in accordance with what you see. So he agreed to this, and he tested them for 10 days. And at the end of 10 days, they looked way healthier and better nourished than any of the young men who ate the royal food. Instead of making a public protest, Daniel honors the authority, and he creates a plan. Did you know that you can stand out in the wrong way for the right things, right? So we don't need to point out everybody's sin. We don't need to yell at everybody. We need to go back and we need to pray, okay? So I'm going to show you guys a clip of somebody that clearly missed the memo. Here we go. Hit it.
Attention Target customers! Do not be deceived. Target would have you believe with their Mother's Day displays that they love mothers and children.
How crazy is that? That is not what we want to do. So, okay, here we go. So we need to have wisdom to stand out in the right way. There are so many Christians standing for the wrong things in the wrong way. And that is not the kind of place or the kind of church that I want this church to be, and that's not the kind of people that I believe that God's calling us to be. He's calling us to be light and love and balance it with truth. And there's so many Christians that are out there bashing and hurting people, and now we're paying the price for the many generations before us that screwed this all up for us. So you've seen this. You've seen the Facebook, the Bible police, right? No, that's not right. Well, you're not even using King James Version. What the heck are you doing, right? And we've seen the rude. They're rude and they're angry all the time. So then there's the turn and burn people, right? So these are the people that are the ones sitting on the side of the road picketing, right? So I'm from Springfield, Missouri, and there used to be this thing called Art Walk. And we used to go downtown every single first Friday, and you better believe that there'd be like 4 or 5 like curmudgeon looking people on the side of the road with their sandwich board signs that say like, the end is near, repent, you're going to hell, and like they just be yelling at people and telling them that they're burning in hell. And you know what? I never saw one conversion come from that. I never saw anything that genuinely lasted out of any of those kind of conversations that happened. I know a lot of people that were damaged by that, and they never wanted to go to church again. And that is not what we are called to do. We're supposed to be an example wherever we are and make a difference in our community. And I don't see them making a difference. I see them making a divide in many relationships and many hearts, and they're making everybody hate the church. And that's not what we're called to do. So another thing that I did was, so growing up, a lot of my friends, they smoked weed and they partied. And I remember growing up, I was a pastor's kid, and I went down the wrong road. I was just trying to figure out, man, what is this life thing about? This whole Bible thing that my parents believe in, it's not real. Like this thing is fake. And so I really went down a wrong road. And so one day I had to pre-decide and tell my friend, hey, you know what? I can't hang out with you anymore. I can't go to these places anymore. I can't do these things. And I didn't say, you know what, you're bad, you're a sinner. And I didn't point it out, and I didn't tell everybody else that, no, I'm going to be a Christian, and what you guys are doing is wrong. But no, I went to him in love, and I said, hey, listen, I can't do this anymore, and I really, really, really need you to understand. And I'm not doing this because I don't like you. I'm doing this because I want greater things in my life, and I'm also believing for greater things in your life. And I had to set the pace, and if I wouldn't have stepped out, I would have missed out on a huge opportunity, because later that year, I said, you know what, if you want to hang out with me, you can come to Bible study with me. You can come be my best friend at Bible school. Come hang out with me. And guess what? He came to church with me. He came to group with me. And you know what he found? He found Jesus. He found a relationship with God. And then slowly other friends started coming. But it was because I was willing to step out in faith. I was willing to stand up for what I believed in and stand out. And yeah, they looked at me weird when I was telling them, hey, I feel like God's telling me not to be your friend anymore. I didn't say it like that. But that's basically how they felt. And so, trust me, it's going to be hard at first to step out for God. But once you do, you're going to be amazed at what God does and what he does in your relationships with your friends. So I pre-decided that I wasn't going to go to the party. And I pre-decided that I was going to get more involved in church, right? So it's not even we just need to pre-decide to get away from bad things, but we need to pre-decide that we're going to go to church. And if we can't get to church, what are we going to do? We're going to go to church online, or we're going to watch messages. We're going to feed our soul. We're going to spend daily amounts of time in the Word. We're going to pray. We're going to fast, and we're going to believe. But we have to pre-decide that we're going to do the right things to stand out for God, okay? So let's go back, and let's look at Daniel 1:19, and let's see what he said. So the king came back, right? And he talked to them. And he found none equal. Let's say it together. None equal to Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, right? So because they prayed for wisdom and they predetermined that they would follow God, God gave them the knowledge and the understanding, right, to do better in school. So here we go. Here's the synopsis, right? If you want to do better in school, don't eat the cafeteria food that's dedicated to the pagan gods. No, I'm just kidding. That's a freebie. But for real, because they took a stand, right? God gave them a way better figure. They were healthier. They looked better, right? They were better in school. God gave Daniel special abilities to understand visions and interpret dreams of the king, right? He literally changed the course of history because of his obedience to God. How many of y'all want to change the course of history because of your obedience to God? I know that I do. I know that I want to stand out, that I want to be the change in the world. And if I have to give up a meal once a week, like we do every single Wednesday, we're fasting and we're praying together as a church, that we're praying for God to make a change in Gloversville and for Amsterdam and for the surrounding community. We're believing that God wants to make a difference. And if I have to just give up one meal and pray and say, God, I want to see greater things in this community, then that's what I'm going to do. And if you want to do that, you can go online and you can sign up, and you can sign up to be and learn all about fasting and praying and what that entails. But I'm believing that because we're willing to give up things that we want for the things that we want more, we're going to see God do greater things. Same thing in our finances. We tithe because we want to stand out, or we want to believe that God is going to do more and greater things, because we're going to give up 10% and believe that God's going to give us 90% more and make that 90% more go way more than our 100% could, right? So if Daniel and his buddies had simply blended in, nothing historic would have happened. Or they would have stubbornly refused to eat, right? They would have likely been executed. So if they would have gone out and they were like, no, we're not eating this, we're not doing this, and caused a giant scene, no, they would have been killed. So God gave them wisdom to deal with this and to be wise in a way, to honor him, to honor those in authority, right? And he was able to go out and make a difference in history. So let's get right into it, right? So I would rather be remembered for standing out than forgotten for blending in, right? Come on, I'm preaching good this morning. Come on. So I would rather be remembered for standing out than forgotten for blended in, right? This reminds me of the song that I used to sing as a kid in the Bible, in my Sunday school class, and it used to go like this. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of, come on, sing it. I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, oh, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, right? So if we refuse to stand out, we will not make an impact that we were born to create. If we don't shine, right, we're not making a difference. So my prayer for you is, guys, don't settle for less than what God has for you. Trust in him and stand for him. Time and time again, you'll be lured to blend in, or you can take a stand and stand out. So we will take a stand against the devil and his schemes, right? And we will put on the full armor of God, okay? And when the day of evil comes, we will stand, okay? And when you've done everything else, stand. All right, location pastors, come forward. God bless. Thank you guys for being with us today.